So this is something that I'm uniquely positioned to talk about. I've thought about doing this video like a bunch, and I think, by the way, I'll just be transparent. The reason that I'm making this video now is that I'm really close to monetizing the vlog channel, and I think this is a topic that a lot of people will be interested in, so hopefully it allows me to do that, and then I can tell you about other things that I'm uniquely positioned to tell you about, which is my relationship with Pokemon, my working relationship with Pokemon, how you, if you're a Pokemon YouTuber, you could get a working relationship with Pokemon, or if you're a YouTuber of any kind and you want the kind of parent brand to notice you, please, I'll be good, just notice me, how that might come about for you and what that process is like. But to give you a little bit of context, I think I first need to just, because there's a lot of people out there who will just go, man, why do the YouTubers or the Twitch streamers or the TikTokers not get noticed by the parent brand? Or like, why don't they get noticed in the right way? And I think the important thing to understand is that while, yes, content creators provide marketing for a product, it's marketing that the company did not ask for. Companies in the pre-YouTube world have social media marketing strategies. They had strategies for releasing trailers and this kind of thing. Now we've entered a new world where people are going to break down and dissect those trailers, and even if not just the trailers, people are going to make content year-round. That means that in the off-season, like right now with Pokemon, no new Pokemon game this year, main series anyway, that void for people who are hungry for Pokemon content is being filled by people making, you know, Pokemon content, Let's Plays and challenges and that kind of thing, which is great for the company when the messaging of the people making that content aligns with their brand messaging. So let's take Disney, for example. If the creator is making Disney content and they're like breaking down trailers and it's all very family friendly and it's all very like in line with the brand's ethos is, great, that's totally fine. The company's gonna probably kind of love that kind of creator. But what happens when the creator has their own brand imagery? What happens when the creator is controversial? What happens when the creator gets involved in controversy? Or what happens if they're not even controversial, but let's say you're a Pokemon YouTuber, but you love covering Yu-Gi-Oh as well? Isn't that a competitor? Is the company going to work with that person? It's kind of a weird gray minefield of like, I don't know. Lots of people will say, legally you can do this, or legally you can do that, or you can't do this, and most of the time people don't really know what they're talking about. I think largely speaking, IP owners, as in people, you know, the people who own these companies and own these, intellectual properties, probably can do sort of whatever they want. Whether they should be able to, I don't know. I mean, it's their intellectual property, right? How creative do you have to be? Really, it's about whose lawyers would win, and oftentimes that's going to be the big company. Thankfully, we live in a world where, generally speaking, big companies aren't going out of their way to take down creators, though we do see it every single year. And there have been examples throughout the years, and I swear I'm gonna ground this again, I'm gonna bring this back to my experience working with Pokemon. I've worked with them nearly 100 times, or around 100 times over the last decade. But we have seen it in the forms of, I think Toei Animations went after one of the Dragon Ball Z creators a couple of years ago, totally not Mark, I think. We've seen that the creators of Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh, like Konami, are not fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, despite the fact that basically everyone who plays Yu-Gi-Oh! Knows Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. And for many people, it's what brings them into the franchise. We've also seen the opposite be true. Red vs. Blue is something I've talked about on this channel before and I think about a lot. Red vs. Blue took the IP of Halo, turned it into a comedy series, hugely successful because the company said to Rooster Teeth, who made Red vs. Blue, hey, how can we help you? And that spawned a 20-year-long span of content creation and allowed Rooster Teeth to grow and do other stuff. And in turn has probably benefited the Halo IP massively. So it can be this wonderful two-way relationship. Now at that time, Halo was just starting out. So probably they were up for taking riskier marketing moves like that. When you've got a big established brand like Pokemon or Disney, they're probably not super fussed about seeing your creative opinion and supporting it if you want to do things a little bit differently. So for example, if I wanted to make a web series in which I took animations of the Pokemon and it was like a comedy style series in which the Pokemon swore at each other, even if it garnered a lot of interest, and even if like it had loads of fans who were like, hey, I'd never even heard of Pokemon before watching this comedy series, the chances are Pokemon are not likely to call me up and say, hey, how can we help support your vision? Because they don't need to. In fact, if anything, it's kind of like damaging on their IP. So that's the kind of thing they may be more likely to take down. Now, that's largely speculation, but it's speculation based on experience. And I think it's generally just common sense, right? So, how did I come to working with Pokemon, and what do I even mean by working with Pokemon? Well, over the last decade, around 100 times, I've been gifted products, and those posts have always said, by the way, I've always been super transparent, whether it's hashtag gifted or hashtag ad or whatever else. Over the last 10 years, I've been gifted products, Pokemon cards, experiences, early access to things, games and that kind of thing. I say early access to games. I've only ever been allowed early. I've been able to play Sword and Shield early and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And actually one of the best experiences was them being able to upload that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee content onto my channel. It was one of my most popular videos for the longest time. That truly was them supporting me in a huge kind of way. There were also experiences where I got paid to advertise products. And when I say work with Pokemon, sometimes that's the Pokemon Company International. Sometimes that's like a company that is their PR company, and sometimes that's like one of their partners. So I did a lot of work with DENA is how it's spelled. DNA. Why am I confused about that? I worked with them a bunch. DNA, who produced Pokemon Masters, the mobile game. I did a bunch of ads with them. I don't know whether I would have been put forward for those adverts or considered if I hadn't done previous work with Pokemon, and those were paid ads, right? So across the years, there's been across 10 years, there's been around 100 instances of invited to events, paid stuff, or gifted gifts and that kind of thing. That relationship started because I knew someone who was already invited to these early access kind of events, and I got invited along through them to a Pokemon TCG event, to like a launch event for XY Evolutions back in 2016. At the time, getting invited by the Pokemon Company to go to an early launch of something was the most exciting thing that could possibly happen to me as a Pokemon YouTuber starting out on their journey, just a fledgling, being noticed by Pokemon. And in my head, what I hoped that relationship would evolve into was one like Rooster Teeth and Red vs. Blue, where I would say, hey, here's my idea for like a Pokemon theory, and like we could work on like live action sets and stuff, and we could do some of my favorite kinds of videos, the Pokemon epics, to bring to life my ideas. The problem with that is because a lot of my content is speculation and it's not written into lore. They're not going to let me write the lore of Pokemon, and letting me sort of do that. If I had said, hey, Pokemon, you've got the Galar region coming out, Pokemon Sword and Shield, it's based in the UK, why don't we film a video? Would you give me the budget to go to Stonehenge and film a video in which we talk about the lore of the legendary Pokemon, and I can make some connections because I got some cool ideas and some theories. If they were to do that, that would be like endorsing my idea. That would be kind of like saying, yeah, this is in some way kind of like canon, right? Pokemon aren't gonna do that, especially because it's a Japanese IP. The IP gets the canon sort of gets decided in Japan, and then it gets there's all these companies, and the Pokemon Company International then feeds down to me, and like they're not going to let me have that kind of input, because what happens then, for example, if my channel becomes super controversial down the line? Oh gosh, they've got an attachment to me in that kind of way. So the relationship has, and I want to be clear, the people I spoke to at Pokemon and at their companies have always been so lovely and so incredibly kind to me, and so generous with their time. The relationship has had to be one where ultimately I'm at arm's length with the IP holder who's over in Japan, and there's several people between me and them, and it kind of has to be that way. There's a really interesting video about Nintendo's history with IP infringement, and like Donkey Kong and King Kong and the lawsuit that they had with Universal back in the day. I'm actually going to link to that video down below because I think it provides a lot of context as to why creator relationships are the way they are with the company. So I would work with them on this kind of non-contractual basis largely, where I might get an email saying, hey, there's this event coming up, or there's some free product coming up. Would you be interested in receiving it? And of course I go, yes, please, thank you. We've got an early access to an event. Like, would you like to come? Yeah, please. And they would invite me along, and I would do the social posts. Sometimes asked to do the social posts, often not asked at all. But there's this kind of general understanding that I want to get invited to the next thing, so I'll make sure that I post that I've been invited to this thing. Sometimes, again, hashtag ad where it's relevant to do so, and I've always tried to be as transparent as I possibly kind of can on that front. There were a couple of huge things for me, like I say, getting to play Let's Go Pikachu early and upload that footage. That really felt like the Pokemon Company supporting me. They gave me effectively near exclusive access to something to support my channel. I'm hugely grateful for that opportunity. The Pokemon Bus, there was a Pokemon Bus road trip thing that they invited me to be a host on. And largely the other YouTubers that they invited to be on that were not Pokemon YouTubers. And this is something I want you to understand if you're a Pokemon creator wanting to get noticed by Pokemon, or a creator wanting to get noticed by the parent company of the fandom that you're in. Generally speaking, the people watching my Pokemon videos are probably going to buy the next Pokemon game. Therefore, it's actually not super beneficial for the Pokemon Company, for example, I don't know whether they factored this in or not, to work with me specifically. Why not work with a more general Nintendo channel whose audience maybe play Animal Crossing or play like Smash Bros, that might not have considered playing Pokemon before, but now, because the advert is integrated with a creator, it'll like it's more likely to sell copies. So I was incredibly lucky to be involved in these events. For the longest time, and the third event I think was just being paid by DNA. It was probably most of the stuff I did with Pokemon was not paid, but that was the one time that I got a couple brand deals with DNA to do that, to work with them, and that's the kind of thing where like it actually did pay the bills for a little bit, and I was incredibly lucky to get that kind of very direct financial support. By the way, the reason I'm spilling all the secrets, the beans now, is not because I'm retired, I don't care. There's every chance I'll be making Pokemon videos again in the future. But right now it is a sort of non-tense environment for me to just be kind of quite transparent with you on that front, because I'm not really worried about obsessing the powers that be at Pokemon, and I don't think I would. Again, they're all lovely, and I have great working relationships with many of them, though, of course, not over the last 6 months, because why would they? I'm not making videos, and that's fine. What is the case, though, is if I do come back, there are certain things that Pokemon are less fond of that Pokemon creators can end up doing. No one's told me this directly. This is just the kind of intuitive stuff you pick up on over time. So it's all very speculative as well. Things like ROM hacks. Pokemon aren't a fan of people ROM hacking their game. Of course they're not. Why would they be? They're trying to sell a particular experience, so they're not going to be fond of that. I've actually really gotten into ROM hacks over the last couple months. It may be the thing that's renewed my love of Pokemon and saved the franchise in my brain. That kind of statement is probably like, we're not going to invite you to the next thing. You know what I mean? There's no blacklist, as far as I know. There's no, like, firm, hey, we'll never work with this creator again. But ROM hacks, excessive swearing, excessive discussion of sex and drugs, getting involved in controversy, obviously. It's not stuff it's all stuff that should be quite common sense, honestly. And oddly, I kind of think that's a shame, because, like I've mentioned with Red vs. Blue and Rooster Teeth, Red vs. Blue is this real, like, magic in a jar, lightning in a bottle kind of situation where both companies benefit. Rooster Teeth benefits and Halo benefits. And they really did run with the IP and create their own thing. And it very much is its own thing. Like, there's no confusing. People aren't getting brand confused generally about Red versus Blue, which is obviously over now. Rooster Teeth is shut down. But it allowed 2 decades of them working as a huge company and to spawn other creative projects off the back of being allowed to borrow this IP. And ultimately, both companies benefited, and they created something really unique. When I see these ROM hacks, I think some of them are absolutely incredible. And like I say, like, renew my love of Pokemon. I understand why Pokemon can't, sort of, or Nintendo or any of the companies that own, can't be seen to officially endorse these projects. But at the same time, I think it's a shame, because if they did and bolstered these creators, I only think it would result in more people buying official Pokemon stuff. Truly, I do. So with all that in mind, when I go forward, if I go forward and make Pokemon videos again in the future, I'm not super worried, because I experienced 10 years of what that was like. And other than the odd occasion, like I've mentioned with DNA, it didn't pay the bills. Free Pokemon cards are nice. Being invited to events, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity. Don't think I'm not Pokemon. But it's also would restrict what I could create. And so if you're a content creator, this is what I want to kind of ground this back to. If you're a content creator and you love making videos about, and I don't care what it's about, Pokemon, Transformers, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Power Rangers, whatever the case may be, and there's a parent company who owns the IP, you've got to really think about, I think, weighing up the pros and cons of, do I create content that conflicts with the brand, the parent brand, and I get the complete freedom to be myself and to be my own kind of person, my own kind of creator? Or do you not? Do you kind of play ball and be allowed these incredible opportunities? I think I've just kind of decided after 9 to 10 years, I'm not looking to do that. That's fine. That's good. I know there are a lot of people out there who want to, but then will do things that are antithetical to working with brands. So it's just something for creators to, I guess, be aware of. Understand your relationship to these companies. Well, obviously, we like to imagine we live in a world where these companies cherish and care about us. And I'm sure individuals at those companies really, really do. In fact, I know they do. Ultimately, we're kind of leeching, right? Like, if you're a Marvel creator or whatever, like, you're, you know, or a Pokemon creator, you're leeching off the success of the franchise that you care about, as well as being a fan. You know, it's this weird gray area, and ultimately, who's allowed to do what really comes down to who has the better lawyers. And it's probably the company, right? Like, it's probably the big IP holding company. So consider those things as you move forward as a creator. And as a viewer, if you've ever been confused as to, like, oh yeah, why don't companies work with creators? Or when they do, why do they only work with them in a certain way? Or what's that about? I hope this video kind of clears stuff up for you. It's just an interesting experience that I've had, that I think quite uniquely I've had. I think for a while I was one of, if not the only UK Pokemon creator that was getting invited to a lot of these things, Pokemon specific, especially for someone who was kind of covering speculative content. I think I was in a very unique and yeah, just lucky position to be able to do that. As time moves on, social media is not going anywhere. These companies are going to continue to have new programs and new ways that they think about working with creators. And it can change all the time, like 100%. So nothing's like a given, and everything I've said in this video is just my opinion and like not based in anything other than kind of experience and intuition. If you have, if you want to work with these companies and you're like, but I really want to make ROM hacks, that might change in the future. They might be like totally open to that down the line. I don't know. I can't say. But I hope this video helps you navigating your fandom space. So I hope you found this interesting. Video I wanted to make for a long time. Here it is. Am I coming back to making Pokemon content?